Hi there, I just thought I'd do a quick video tutorial for absolute beginners on how to get started with using C#, especially if you've never used it before. So here goes. This is how to do like an ATM machine, or not a machine, but how to get started with just an output of welcome to C# begin, and then ask for your account number. Of course, don't put your real account number in, you never know who's watching, but just for playing about, I just thought I'd try this. Right, so first of all I'm going to load up Visual Studio 2010. I know some people have had trouble with installing 2012, so we'll just stick with 2010 for now. So I'll go to All Programs, Microsoft, downloaded it, assume that I've got 2012 installed as well, Express. I've got that. 2010 Express, so we'll go with that. So here I'm just going to click to load it up. Okay, so right at this point, what you want to do, if you should hopefully see some slides, you can see I've been doing a few little programs before and it's just showing recent projects. I'm just going to do new project, and then Microsoft Visual Studio gives me an option of what type of project I'd like to work on. First of all, I'll just start with the bottom up, empty project. Just if you were to double click on that, it would just be completely empty, there'd be nothing in there, it wouldn't give you a start, there'd be no template start. The window, presentation, foundation, browser application. Personally I think that's a bit complicated yet. It's making it all work inside a browser. I'd like to get into that myself yet, but not just yet. A bit too difficult maybe. A class library, you can build yourself up a library of your special commands, or and group them together in like a library or a group of methods. Console application, that's what we'll be loading in a minute. This Windows presentation foundation application. Again, this is C#, but it makes it look the GUI or the user interface look really a lot nicer. But again, it's more complicated. That's the only thing. The Windows form application layer, that's what I use. That's the kind of application I load up most of the time. Again, it's just a template to give you a start, but you can probably create these yourself. These templates yourself, maybe your favourite ones after you, especially if you're working from home or you're a hobbyist or whatever, you probably want to build your own up, so if you're starting a new project, it'll load up all your favourites straight away without having to pull them from certain areas. Anyway, so go for this console application. The reason why I'm going to choose console application, because basically if you're just trying to learn C# and you're just trying to learn the commands and need practice with that, this is probably the best one to go for, because it's the core. It'll help probably take away the graphics and everything else. It'll just help you get familiar with some of the basic classes that you need and how to code. So anyway, I'm going to call this down here you should call it something sensible like ATM machine or whatever you're wanting to call your project. So I'm just going to click on OK. Now here, as you can see, it's loaded this window up here, and it's called program.cs. Now at the top bit here, these I'll just explain what these bits are and why it's like this. The using means basically that initially your project, when it compiles, it's going to look for some classes or methods or commands, if you like, program commands from various libraries, and there's 4 libraries here, and one's called system.collection.generic.link.txt. Now I think that if I was to remove these 3, it wouldn't make any difference, because you see that this dot here, the dot tends to mean that that's an accessor to something else. So system.collections, that's a bunch of collections in there, which is to do with arrays and so on, but we'll come back to another point. I understand that we don't need any of these libraries, you could say, for this particular for the very basics of what we're needing, but well, I'll leave it there. It won't slow the program down at all when it runs or when it compiles, because Microsoft C# is pretty clever, and it'll only look at what commands are relevant to your actual project. Namespace, now this is what you're calling your using area, if you like. Every bit of code you do has got to have a namespace. Like if I highlight this, for example, that tells me that's a namespace called system. Here, namespace, here, this is what you're declaring, so that namespace is your area, what you're setting up, what you're defining. Class program, that's just it's just all this is doing is declaring a class called program. Now you can probably rename that to something else if you want, but we'll leave that as it stands for now. Everything in C# is run inside a class. I don't know how much you obviously know about variables, but for example, let me try and set up a variable here. You probably find it won't let me. I'll be a bit embarrassed if it does. So if I'll do a string name, somebody's name. Oh, I don't want to do that. Name. I'll call it name. First name equals Matt. It doesn't like that because I'm not putting that inside a class. Everything you declare, everything you do has got to be inside a class. Now there can be a class that's already there when you load the program up, but as you go along you'll be making your own classes, and the class is basically, you could see it as a template. That's a common one. A class, that's your entire program in there. It's got methods in there, and variables, everything, all your entire program is inside a class. As I said, you can have lots of classes. There's also, I'll talk a bit more about classes. You can get Microsoft classes which come with C#, and that's called the base classes, I believe, or the base class library, BCL as it's known, and all of these are in the Microsoft base class library, so they come free with Microsoft. Otherwise you wouldn't have any commands to start with, so you need something to build on. Microsoft give you all these commands and classes to start with, so everything is done with inside a class. For this type of project, we have to start with this static main void main. Now this is actually, I think, what's that? It's actually a method inside a class. You've got methods, and in this type of application, this console application, it needs this. You need to call your method called main. So all your code should go in here. Now, if I put this inside, I just have an experiment. If I move that and put it inside this class, you'll see that I won't get the error anymore at the bottom, which came up there. There's no error there. F6 is a quick way to compile it to see if there's any errors that come up. I've got a warning here, which basically says just ignore that for now. That's just something problem with my PC there. But this one's saying that the field atm.program.firstname is assigned, but its value is never used. So there's just a little warning there. It's just saying I'm assigning a variable equal to something, but I'm not using it later in the program. So potentially it's saying that doesn't do anything. I'm just setting up something up in memory, and I'm not using it within my program. So anyway, I'll get rid of that for now. That's just a quick demo to say basically everything must be inside a class within C#, and that might help you just to get started a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to start this project now. That's with the CodePlex C# beginners project. Just a quick remind me what we're going to do. We're going to basically read from the console window, and we need to know how to output to the console window. And further down, basically we want to be doing something like this. So I'm going to start off with the name of a class that comes free with Microsoft, and it's called console. The console class is part of the system namespace that comes with Microsoft. You can see it gives me a little hint there. Gave me a little hint. So at this point I'm going to use a dot, and a dot in C# means access something else. So within the class of console I want to access something that will perhaps write to the screen. After a while you get to know the names of the classes and which ones will maybe have got the tools or methods in there that you need to be able to do whatever you need to do. So console is a big one when it comes to running console applications, I guess. So it's a console class and it's part of the system namespace. So console.9, there's various areas. This is a property, background colour, and setting the background colour. If you see something in pink, it means it's a method, so that'll do a clear, maybe does a clear screen. It can actually, it clears the console buffer and corresponding console window, so that's a method. So you'll know the difference between properties and method once you start working with it a bit more. You should also have a C# book really to start with, not just rely on tutorials and things like this, but this is a good start. So there's two ways of writing using, there's two methods in the console class that we can use. One's called write, which that writes the specified string value to the standard output stream, and that just means just outputting whatever you say to the screen. And this one writes the text to the screen, but also includes a carriage return. To me it's not so obvious from reading that's what it does, but that's essentially what it is. So at this point I think I can just use the open bracket and it will save me typing that command in there. So console access, I'm saying class console, access a method called writeLine. So I'm just going to do an open bracket at this point, hopefully it'll, yeah, so that saves me typing that in. That's just to give you an idea. So then I'm going to put in here in quotes. Now before I move on, as you can see I'm pressing my up and down arrow key here. C#'s quite good, well Microsoft Studio's good in that it tells you what types of variables I can use. I can just close my brackets here if I want to, and that's basically just going to probably do a carriage return to the screen. So I'm going to go back here and open my brackets again and see what type of input it's wanting here, what kind of type it expects. That's bool, it means true or false, so I can put the word true or false in there and that will output true or false to the screen, I guess. I've not tried that. And that outputs a char to the screen. A char is just one character, and that if you need to do that, then that one character to screen is used in single quotes like that. Another one is bool value. I don't know, I'd like to come with bool value again. No, that's probably just me. I'll keep going. I'm going the wrong way, that's right. Okay, so I can say output a array. That if you see square brackets, it means an array of characters. I've not tried that, but that's basically what it means. A decimal value, there's type decimal in C#, as in most object-oriented programs. Everything's strongly typed, as they say. In other words, it's got to be a string, a decimal, or a float, or some type of class. Decimal and string are actually classes that come with actually classes inside C#, or types, and they're known as primitive types because Microsoft make those a bit easier for you to use. You don't have to type so much to declare a string and so on. Anyway, I'll keep going. Now here we've got float, integer, a string. Now this is what I need. I need to input a string in here. So I'm just going to put a blob of text in here that save me typing, save time a bit. So I'm just going to put that in like this. I'm just going to go back a minute. I've closed the quotes. Here I've got to remember to close the brackets and put a semicolon on the end. And there's no errors with that. There's just warnings, but I'm not so concerned. Just a minute. The reason why this warning error is still coming up is because sometimes I find I have to press F6 to just tell it to recompile what's on the screen. So I press F6. You can see it's just come back to my little warning here, which doesn't mean anything at all, so I'll ignore that. In fact, you can close that off for the time being, you don't need it there. Okay, just to explain as well that everything should be, the class has got these curly brackets, so everything's inside, everything for this class is defining in these brackets. Just out of interest, I could define another class quite easily, just like this class program, class test. I could create and then do more curly brackets like this, just to show you, to give you an idea. And if I do F6 again, if there was an error there, it would have a little curly line underneath it, or it would show me an error down here automatically. But that's just to give you an idea. You can create as many classes as you want in the same area if you want to. There's also ways of saving your classes to separate files, to separate areas, so that everything's not all cluttered together. So I'll just get rid of that for now. So back to the program again. Now, what you need to do what you need to get used to doing in C# is running things regularly, basically after every single line that you type, or every couple of lines. You could say, I don't know what the analogy is. I suppose if you're making a cake, a good chef will always taste it every couple after adding the extra ingredients. He won't just make the cake and then trust that it's going to taste fine before he gives it out to the customer, or puts it in the oven. So you need to keep testing it at every single point along the way. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to run the program to see what happens. There's two ways of doing it. You can either click on the green arrow, or you can press F5. I prefer to press F5, but you can run the program either way. Again, F6, you don't have to press F6 and then F5. When you press F5, it effectively does an F6 first anyway, to make sure there's no syntax errors or problems with your code. So I'll press F5 to run it. Now, as you can see, it just got a black window. I'll do it again, and it just came and disappeared again. The reason for that is that the console application is just basically output to like a DOS window, and then it disappears again. I've got to tell C# to say, hang on a sec, I want to be able to see what's in the output screen before you disappear, and then I'm happy, So basically I want to put a command in here to tell it that screen not to disappear, so I can make sure the code's okay that I've written in it. I get the output that I effectively want. Again, I'm using this console class, and as you can see, console classes show up as this colour as well in Visual Studio. So console dot, this time I'm going to use a command called read line. So I'm going to ask the user to press something. Now I think I could even get away with this read, which means just expect a character before continue. So I'm going to, as you can see, it's pink, so that's a method again, just like write line's a method. So it's saying that. Now interestingly, that read there, it tells me it's a type int, so it's expecting an int. Now really, I'm not so sure about whether it would be an int from the keyboard or what, so maybe I'm going to go for this, which says this will accept a bool. I'm not sure about that. Read line string, that's probably better, so I'm just going to go for read line here. So I'm just going to use expecting a string. How do you know it expects a string? It's because that before when it just gave that little bit of a explanation there, it says string, so it's saying it's a type string. You'll learn more about strings and decimals and floats and integers as you go along. So I'm going to go for this read line command, and then I'm going to open the brackets. That's what you must do with every method that you use. Now C# normally has loads of different options that you can put inside the brackets, and it will remind you, but in this case there's no option, so all I can do is just remember to close my brackets. Then you must remember to put a semicolon on the end of every command that you do, or every part of C# that you do. So here I'm going to press F5 again to run it, and that's better. So it's welcome to C# begin ATM facility. Okay, so facility, so I'm just going to put an I in there to cover that, that's fine. Okay, well I hope that's okay just for the beginning, and I'll be back soon.